We are live for this morning's edition of the Coffee Chat Show. Tracy's actually here in Vermont. She's upstairs in the other room. Karen is in Florida. There will be a Saturday here where Karen and I will be together in Boston doing the show. So I get to see them both this summer.
Yeah.
We will, notifications are going out, so we'll just give it a minute, you guys, till we start to.
Yeah, it just posted.
I'm loving the lights. The
Oh,
neon light
yeah.
around it.
The neon light around us. Yeah, because we're groovy. This morning, we're just waiting for everyone to catch up with the fact that we are here. We are live and online. Notifications just went out. This morning, we're going to talk about releasing the past versions of yourself, what it means to honor past versions of yourself and to release past versions of yourself. And we're going to talk about making the most of the next 5 months. We've got 5 months until we end the year. And if you, came into the year strong and you thought a bunch of things and they haven't happened, or you've had some disappointments or what you would call setbacks, we're going to give you a way to reframe all of that today, this morning, and start fresh. Tracy came to visit, and we have been literally throwing away everything practically in this house. I do this once a year. I'm going to be 55 in a few weeks. Tracy came. She's a master organizer. We have cleaned the entire garage. We have cleaned the entire basement. I have rearranged my bedroom. I've rearranged the living room. We got rid of a piece of furniture that had been in my bedroom that I inherited when I bought the house. I didn't really have a choice. It was a big, huge item, and I finally got rid of it yesterday. Yeah. So that to me is significant because it wasn't mine to begin with. I just accepted it. Okay, so I see some of our folks here. So for those of you that don't know us, or if you're new to Coffee Chat, I've been doing this show since 2016, so we've been here a long time. We work off the Working Coach Mom Facebook page. We have 1.5 million people following us. For a few months ago, I invited Tracy and Karen to start co-hosting the show with me. Tracy's been a part of the show for many years now already behind the scenes. Karen works for me and with me at staffagency.com, and we are under that umbrella. We are a complete staffing and recruiting firm and training, and we do DISC, we do HR stuff. I'm John Maxwell certified, so we do all of those things under Staff Agency. Tracy and I have Fortunato Partners, which is my consulting company, and through that we do coaching and executive coaching, and Tracy does life coaching. So we have a lot going on, and we do the show as a give back. So we're not trying to sell you anything. We're trying to just promote in the fact that here's what we do. If you're interested in working with us in a paid capacity, you can go visit our other sites. This particular model and structure is my give back. And now it's Karen and Tracy's as well, because I've invited them to join us. So we started out all together talking about Jack Canfield's The Success Principles book. I felt like that was getting a little dry because we were really just kind of covering the lessons in the book. So we are still in there, in that Karen and I and Tracy, we're all still reading through it. We're aware of the principles. I've been working those principles for decades. Karen's working on them. Tracy's been working them for decades. So this morning, we're talking about releasing the past, releasing past versions of yourself. I'm going to give you an exercise if you really want to dig into that. And then I'm going to give you an exercise to take through this next 5 months, something to remind you of your why. Good morning, everyone. We see everyone falling in, all of our regular.
So many good mornings.
Yeah, good to see you guys. Nice to see you this morning.
The time.
Yeah, this time is clearly what these folks want. So here we are.
Yeah.
So let's just talk about releasing. I'm going to give you some context, and then I'm going to turn it to Karen and then to Tracy and kind of ask them, what some of their insight might be on this. So releasing past versions of yourself. When I was doing some forgiveness work over the last year or so, I recognized that I had forgiven the other people, and I had forgiven the other people, and I had forgiven the situations and the circumstances. And what I had not done the work on was the version of myself that I was then that accepted whatever that situation was. And I thought that that was a really interesting take because it was a big piece of like the forgiveness process that was missing. Because even though I had forgiven them over there, I still reserved the right to be like pissed at myself that I allowed certain things to happen or that I behaved in certain ways. So forgiving yourself and past versions of yourself is really an important part of releasing the past completely and doing that work. So Trace, what might be a version of yourself that you're super done with, or maybe some forgiveness that you haven't done?
Yeah, you made me think of the time when I was younger. I always went after the Italian boys, and me and my girlfriends would go out, and they would know as soon as we walked in the door. Hey, Noelle, can you block that?
What?
That comment?
Oh yeah.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I can't.
It's fine.
So,
You guys, if there's spam coming up, we'll get it. So just
okay.
Don't worry about it.
Okay. So I always used to be attracted to a specific kind of guy, and my girlfriends, they would walk in the room and they'd say, "Oh, Tracy," because they knew that it was just what I did. So what I didn't realize was that I pigeonholed a particular look, and I was very shallow. And so in the process of learning what was it about, because for my girlfriends to point it out, I was like, oh my gosh, how do they even know what, because of my mindset, right? It was so narrow. It was so only here. He has to be only here. And it was not expansive. It was not growth. It was not any of that. It was very shallow. And so to be able to release that and to be able to open my mind to new possibilities and to recognize who the person is, not just what they look like. It was just total shift for me. Total shift. Growing up, my mom was very much about appearance, about how the house looked and how she looked. So that was taught to me that it was more important about how you look rather than who you are. And then so to release that and learn about who am I and who are you, it's huge. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, that is huge for sure. Karen, what about you? You're younger than us. But you... She's got 3 decades. Tracy has 6 and I have 5 and a half.
I'm older. I mean, I do want to point out I'm in my mid-30s. Some people recently have been, thinking, I don't know, maybe whatever. But I'm older than you think.
Yeah.
I have 2, but the one that I really am leaning towards is the old version of myself that has the self-doubt in my head. And I think it's important because on paper, I looked like I had it all together. But the imposter, and we talked about this in another session, the imposter syndrome and the self-doubt. And I'm done with that. I'm releasing that. I've been doing that work for months now. Yeah. And that I think is really important, is even if you are perceived a certain way, I always had that voice in my head. No, you're not good enough. Don't go to the gym. No, you're not going to get that promotion. No, this, no, that. No, that guy's not going to like you, whatever it is. And so that has been really powerful. I'm releasing that big time.
That's awesome. That's a great, I mean, that was a big deal to realize that, I had to forgive myself for who I was then. Maya Angelou, I believe, is the one that says, when we know better, we do better. And I mean, that seems like this trite, like, oh yeah, that's good. When you know better, you do better. But you really that's like, if you really receive that information and you kind of let it, marinate down in you, like that's a real thing. When we know better, we do better. And so when whatever happened back there, whenever it happened, like I promise you, we were all doing the best that we could for the version of ourselves that we were in that moment. Like we were literally doing the best that we could. Yep. And that's a big tool for forgiveness of other people, is when you recognize that if you were doing the best that you could, then they were probably doing the best that they could too. And although it's not how we think we would have behaved, it is the best that those people, can do. Yeah. And that's it. I mean, that's the thing. Like, why carry a grudge, or why harbor a resentment, or why drag along this albatross, like over your shoulder and behind you? Like, what for? Who? all that stuff that you're holding on to, the ex-husband, the ex-girlfriend, the whatever your, you know, whatever your personal relationships are, whatever you're holding on to, whatever the past represents, like, I promise you, what's the point? Right? Like, life is, we don't know how much time there is. And so I just think, like, why do you want to waste any? You know, why do we want to waste any time with, like, talking about the past? If you're a biblical person or a God person, there is something to be said for, you know, what Christ says in the Bible about you don't want to be like Lot's wife, which Lot's wife is the only time, like, she looked behind her and she turned into a pillar of salt. So I know not all of you are God people, but that's just an example. Like, there's no point in looking behind you. And Tracy always says that's why the rear view mirror is, you know, why the windshield is bigger than the rear view mirror.
Oh, yeah.
So I don't want to belabor the point about letting things go, because there's other stuff we want to talk about this morning, but, like, really let it go. I mean, we've got 5 months left to 2023. We have the opportunity to reconfigure ourselves right here in this moment. You could all use this particular coffee chat show discussion to reinvent yourself for the next 5 months and forward into the future. You get to choose, right? We talk a lot about Kendra Hall's book and your story, and you get to write a new story, and what story is that going to be? And this is all just more of that same conversation. So let's talk about, for a minute, there's something to be said about honoring the past as well. Okay. So forgiving and releasing is like, I'm at peace with you. We're good. I'm letting you go. Honoring the past is like, that's who I was. I get that I did the best that I could. That's who you were. I really loved you then, and I love you now, and it's just not the same. So I honor, like, what we had in that time that we had it. I don't, like, Trace, hang on 1 second. I don't, I'm not trying to erase that. I'm not trying to make it like it didn't happen. And I'm not carrying a grudge for that. I'm like, this is who you were. This is who I was. This is what we had. I honor that. I'm at peace with that. I release the stuff about that I don't require anymore. And I can move forward, you know, with a love for you, or that is just a love for the ages, right? Because there are some, whether it's family or romantic or whatever, like, there are relationships, right? So there's that honoring, right? Because sometimes we go, oh, forgive and forget, just like that. No, because that keeps you also stuck, right? Tracy, go ahead. You were going to say something.
So good. So when I met Luke's dad, I was a certain mindset. I was a certain way. I was a certain girl. I was a certain, right? And as my mindset expanded, and as my self-worth expanded, and as the more I got to know what mattered to me and what my values are and what my standards are, it changed who I was. So I elevated to a higher place, and he wasn't willing to elevate. He was holding on to his past, and he was begrudged and upset and angry and all in that. And I released him just to say, go to the mountain, go to the gym, go to the diocese, go do whatever you need to do, because you got to get through this or it's going to tear you down, you know? And so 6 months later, he chose to do nothing. And sadly, we had to divorce. So instead of me staying down there with him and living in the muck with him and allowing his outbursts to continue to occur in my life, I had to separate myself from him. And now we're really good friends. If he ever came to my city to see our son, I would say, you can stay at my house. Like, I was able to release what was, because I honored myself and I stood true to who I wanted to be in the world, and stepped up to, own that place and release, like Noelle said, release and forgive and let it go. And then move from here. What can we have now? How can we make it work now? What's happening here? Yeah.
And that's just like Rodney and I too, right? Like
Yep.
Tracy, my first ex-husband is actually here for the weekend, not at the house. He's with his son and they're staying at a hotel.
Yep.
But Tracy and I have been friends, you know, with him. We've been friends for 30 some odd years.
Yep.
We were married for a short time. He cheated on me. You know, we got a divorce. We didn't speak for 10 years. He's not the father of my son. That was my second marriage. And, you know, I'm friends with all my ex-husbands. I mean, there was a period of time where, you know, we didn't speak. And I kind of reconfigured myself and he reconfigured himself. But, you know, when that happens, when you can reinvent your relationship with someone because the connection was real, sometimes we get confused about the type of relationship that it's supposed to be. Truthfully, sometimes someone is like a lifetime companion as your friend, and we get confused and we turn them into a romantic alliance and it doesn't turn out. And, you know, in the case of Rodney, that's what it was. And, you know, Chuck is Antonio's father and we're friendly. We're if he needed something, I would try to help, but we don't, like Rodney and I talk several times a week. My second husband and I, we're friendly, but we don't have that same, it's not that same, like we're talking all the time.
Just be amicable.
Right. And actually my current husband, I collect husbands, my current husband loves, you know, is friendly with both of them. And if you guys follow us, you know that they were all here for Thanksgiving a year, I think it was not this past year, but the year before. We had Antonio's dad here and we had Rodney here. And of course my husband was here.
Collection.
Yeah, right. Some people collect things. I collect people. Truthfully,
I want to say also, though, Noelle, like if we don't let go of that thing, right, and it continues to begrudge us, it continues to live in us, and every time we think about that person, we're like, oh, it will affect the body, keeps the score, and it will affect us, not them per se. They don't care. They could care less. They're off doing their own thing. But when we don't release that, just like you were talking about releasing things, when we don't release that attitude about the situation of the relationship and let it heal and let it go, it affects our health.
Right.
Yeah.
And just a little FYI, the stuff that annoyed me about these people, like it still does. It's not like that goes away. It's just that when you don't have to live with them every day or they're not your romantic alliance, like you can just breathe and be like, they're doing the best they can. You know,
that's a big thing.
Good. And what can we contribute? You know, John and I, before we invite anyone here, we're always like, we just pray that we can be a contribution to them, you know, because we have such a great alliance, my husband and I, and we just, you know, we're both Reiki masters, which is one of those hidden facts about me that I don't publicize. And so we're just, we're just being, you know, we just want to contribute to people, and we want to, you know, if people come here to our home, we want them to leave with something that they didn't have before, you know, some sense of peace or whatever. Karen, what about you?
So for me, mine was extended family. And a lot of them have been or were in active addiction most of my life. So if I'm going to be 34 soon, I set that boundary with most of my extended family 10 years ago. And I didn't even know I was setting a boundary. Unfortunately, my past version was, I'm going to completely exile you. You will have no idea why. You will be blocked on everything and I will never tell you. And unfortunately, I still have not told some of my aunts why I blocked them out of my life. So that speaking of versions of your old self, I don't do that anymore because it's just not nice to do. And there is a nice way of closing a chapter, but it's, you know, there's still the what ifs. Like, what if, for me, I have a lot of that, like, well, what if it was like this, or what if it's like that? But I know they're not changing and I'm okay with that. And I think a lot of things is guilt. A lot of people hold on to like, well, what if the person passes, or what if this happens, or what if that happens? And some of them have passed. Some of them have passed from active addiction. And when it actually happened, I was like, okay, I'm good with it. Like, even if I didn't talk to my cousin for 10 years and I loved him and we grew up like siblings, like, you know, he wasn't the person I thought he would be. So I think that's important too, is like overcoming the guilt of the what ifs and just moving on.
Right.
It's going to be okay.
You make a good point about sometimes there is a place to like make an X to stop something. So there's been a couple of times in my life where, there's been a distant, relative or something that was taking advantage. For those of you that know me, I'm a huge generous person. I'm a giver. There are a few people in my lifetime that have taken advantage of that.
Yep.
And usually it's Tracy or John or Antonio that vets them out, because lots of times I don't even see it. And Karen is getting good at that for me too. That's one of my blind spots, right? Once you kind of get in under the wire with me and you're in close, like, yeah. So there are times where it's appropriate to just say, like, I'm good here. And it like keeping in contact with you doesn't serve me anymore. And, I just release you in peace. I bless you. I loose you. I let you go. All things are cleared up between us now and forever. We'll post some release affirmations in the group later on. So if you're Wheel of Change is the name of the group that goes with the Working Coach Mom page. But there are some great Catherine Ponder affirmations about release and forgiveness that are fantastic to use. I've been using them, probably for 3-4 decades now, and they work really well. Yeah, isn't that weird to say decades? It's like, holy cow. So the other thing one thing that you can do that will is a great tool. Get a notebook, a pen, a paper, write like a letter, like, I'm releasing, and this version of myself, this version of, like, all of whatever you want to let go of about yourself, and then burn it, like burn it in the sink or burn it out in the grill, or don't burn it in the middle of the living room, please. Or don't burn it in a trash can. Just be responsible if you're burning something. But that's just, right? Up in smoke, gone. So it's a great tool of, to just say to yourself, it's this, it's this, it's this, it's this. I'm done. I'm letting you go. It's not this anymore.
Yep.
Another interesting point, I have an executive coach that I work with, mainly because I want to stay in the space of what it's like to be coached, because I actively am coaching every day. And for those of you that know me well, I'm very authentic, and I want to live what I'm teaching. And so we were talking about over the past couple sessions, I was noticing, he actually noticed that I keep creating struggle, because I struggled most of my life. And there's no need for me to struggle anymore. Yet I keep creating constructs that make struggle. And I'm doing it. And it's like, it was like, oh, wow. Like, I didn't even see that. So that's a version of myself that I'm releasing, right? The version of myself that believes that things have to be a struggle. Yep. I have a huge toolbox now that I don't have to struggle. I can create solutions, and I'm really good at that. In fact, people hire me and pay me a lot of money to create solutions. Right. And so I could do that for myself. It's like, oh, wow. Oh, okay. So that's a version of myself that I want to let go of. So sometimes a coach is a great tool for someone that doesn't really know you, that you're like telling them the story and they're kind of watching you go along, and they're like, hey, you know what? You keep creating that. Do you see that? It's like, oh, wow. Okay, yeah, I see that, but I didn't see it.
Comfortable.
Yeah, until you told me. Now I see it. The other thing is, I watched this cool, we all scroll, right? So I was scrolling this morning. I don't spend a lot of time there, but I noticed this thing from The Rock. And he actually bought a home for this young UFC fighter that came over from Africa. It's a great little story. If you find The Rock on Instagram, Dwayne Johnson, you can watch it's like a, 4 or 5 minute video. Get a Kleenex. It's pretty powerful. And this young man from Africa, from South Africa, had just on a paper his why, why he came over, why he's fighting, and all this kind of stuff. And it was just on a one-sheeter. And I thought, what a great tool. So I would encourage all of us, and Tracy and I are going to do this later on today too. Just on if you have a 6x9 index card, these are my favorite size because they put it right in your face, nice and big. You could write your why on there. This gentleman's why was like his kid's smile, to provide for his village. Like it was, just 4 or 5 things, but really, really powerful. That's like he came over from South Africa and he's sleeping on a sofa in a gym in Miami, to get trained so that he wants to be UFC champion. He wants to be the champion. And it was just I encourage you all to go watch it because that's my why. I want to be the person that's doing that. I want to be someday the Rock who's like being able to do that for people. That's why I do what I do. It's why I work as hard as I do. I probably don't have to work this hard at 55, but I do because I don't know, like, I just want to give more. I want to contribute more. That's really what I'm doing here. And I'm clear about that. That's not everybody's thing. It's not everybody's mission, but you all have your own why, whether it's your family or your community or your husband or your wife or your whatever. You all have it. You all have a why. I encourage you to get really present with your why. And honestly, that will help drive what needs to go, right? That why will help drive the release part of this conversation. Because if the why is this, then what do I need that for?
Yep.
Do I need that? Yep. No, probably not. Go ahead, Trace.
I want to say real quick. So I was just going to say what you just said was that when we know our why, we can stop ourselves in our tracks, because if we have habits that we continually create and we continue to move in that motion until we know, like me, I want to stay healthy, and so I watch what I eat and I get to the gym because I want to have balance, I want to have flexibility, I want to be able to go up a set of stairs in 10 years. Like so then when I reel off the line, I can say, oh wait a minute, is this going to fill my why? Is this going to help me stay flexible? And like, I don't sit on the couch and watch TV all weekend long, but let's just say that was it. Is this really helping me stay flexible and strong? No, because then it will atrophy. So, and then also I wanted to say that sometimes you need to ask the people in your life, because sometimes we can't see what it is that we, our way of being. Like, are we a people pleaser? Are we controlling? Are we demanding? Are we, do we exile, like you had mentioned, Karen? So it might take other people to show us, this is what you do. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I do. Like Noelle just said, like it takes someone else sometimes to say, hey, look at that. And be willing to look at that.
Right. For sure. Yeah, because we can't see, this is why I coach, some people think I don't need a coach. My life is fine. It's all good. And I could say that too. I could say, what do I need a coach for? Because I coach people. People pay me a lot of money to coach them. What do I need a coach for? And it's like, because I don't know what I don't know.
Yeah.
But still, I don't know what I don't know. And that's
so good.
And if I want to keep coaching people and I want to keep creating trainings for people and all that, like, how else am I going to stay present with what it's like to be coached?
Yeah. Because
it can be irritating to be coached, and it's not fun sometimes when someone goes, do you see that? And it's like, oh, shoot. Yeah, I see it now. So, to be in that growth mindset, right? To always keep moving ahead and to keep wanting to learn more, do more, be more, keep releasing. Like, let me just tell you, there's not going to come a time where you've released and forgiven everything, and there's never going to be another time where you need to forgive or release. Just FYI, not going to happen. I've been doing forgiveness work for 4 decades. There's still always something, right? You get better. It gets better because you start to act better because you know better. But there are still some things. Sometimes if you get triggered and you lose your temper, or the things are smaller, right? They don't go on for years or even weeks. It's kind of like in a day, it's like, oh shoot, I could have handled that better. I could have carried myself better in that situation. I could have been kinder. I could, those kinds of things. Karen, anything for you before we wrap these guys up?
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, I had the old version of me and and it was kind of forgiving myself instead of the forgiving others. Like, there's something going on at work and I couldn't figure out this damn PDF. And I was in my mind like, I'm an idiot. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. I can't figure it out. And we all have that voice, right? And I'm driving and I realize the voice is happening. And I'm finally in my life, I'm like, stop it. So it's like pressing pause is what I read recently. There's a reverse, there's a pause and there's a forward. So I press pause and I will like go through this. So I think that's important too, is like honoring who you used to be. And it was just and I wrote it down to talk on the coffee chat show. I was like, I got to talk about this. And the pressing of the pause is really important now.
So good.
Yeah, for sure. And that's like that, how we talk about that fits in right into our respond versus react. So if you do what Karen is suggesting and you press that pause and you take that breath, then you get to choose. Because when we're in a reaction, we're not choosing anything. No. Somebody goes like this and we go like this. And somebody goes like that and we go like that. And it is unconscious and nothing good happens in there and no growth happens in there. And no blessing happens in there. The growth and the blessing and all of those things is in the response, not the reaction, right? So if you do what Karen is suggesting and you take that pause and breathe, then you get to choose. You get to choose if you walk away. You get to choose if you stop the thought. You get to choose if you continue to have a relationship with that person. You get to choose all of those constructs, right? Priscilla loves the pressing the pause. Marion says blind spots are a kicker. They are. And that's where the coach stuff comes into play, right? The coaching stuff comes into play because the coach is able to help you see and navigate your blind spots.
Yep.
And that's important. So if we could leave you with two things this morning, it would be these two things. One, make a list for yourself of all the things, people, circumstances, and versions of yourself that you're just done with, that you've had enough. We have 5 months left of the year. We're going to make it strong. We're going to decide what we need to let go of in order for that to happen. We're going to write that on a piece of paper. We're going to burn it. And we're done. That's it. Yeah. And the second thing is, I suggest you get a piece of paper similar to this in size, because you can put this on your desk or on your bathroom mirror or whatever, however many copies you need to make. Write your why on here and keep it in your face. That will help you create this next version of yourself. It will help you step into your future, just like making a vision statement. This is like a mini vision statement. It's going to pull you into your future. And when you feel shitty or you're feeling down or you forget why the hell you're doing this, that's going to remind you, right? Yep. That's going to help you see and remember why.
So good.
So, yeah. So that's pretty much it for this morning. Also, releasing things is not a bad idea. If you really want to superpower the next version of yourself, go around the house this weekend collecting stuff that no longer serves or represents you or who you want to be, and get rid of it. Just let it go. That's what we're
going to do that after this. Yeah. You two are giving me that energy.
By the way, that includes clothes. Even if they're expensive clothes, I've gone through my closet 3 times already this year and said to myself, does that represent who I want to be? Does that represent who I am? Does that represent a version of myself that I want to keep? And if the answer is yes, it stays. And if the answer is no, it goes. I gave away a lot of expensive stuff. Some of it I hadn't even worn because who I was when I bought it, I ain't feeling it. Right. I'm just not feeling it. And I'm like, okay, that LL Bean sweater could sit in the closet because I paid $200 for it, or I could just let it go because I don't even wear it because it's too earthy crunchy for me, and I must have been in some state of mind.
I was gonna say,
right? So, okay, Betty, she's gonna release the old self who isn't confident on the inside. All right, good. She's done with self-doubt. Me too.
Nice.
Me too, Betty. Okay, so for me, let's just end with the 3 of us saying what we're releasing. I am releasing struggle. I am releasing the idea that my life has to be a struggle, or that I have to struggle to get the results that I want. I'm as a single mom for 18 years with no child support and all that whole story, like it was struggle. It was. Some days it was rough going. There were days when I had $5 in my checking account. And, you know, I noticed that there are still times that I create that feeling for myself, even though those numbers flushed were very different. And this is what my coach was pointing out. Dan was saying, you know, this isn't true for you anymore. Where's the struggle? Where's the evidence that you have to struggle? And I'm like, oh, shit, there isn't any. Okay. So for me, it's struggle and any objects we are releasing. We're about to go through my jewelry box next. So any objects that do not represent kind of where I am or where I'm headed, or don't hold some kind of like, you know, they were from my mom or whatever, or letting stuff go. Tracy, what about you?
Yeah, I am releasing the set mindset that my walk with God has to look a certain way. Like I have to devote so much time in the morning, so much time in the afternoon. Like when again, back to pigeonholing, how I pigeonhole and I make the path so narrow that I can't keep up. And then when I don't keep up, I feel bad. But what I'm learning is that my prayer time and my walk and my reading the Bible and my devotions, all that I like to do, it can be thrown in at any point during the day. It can be on a podcast. It can be while I'm driving. It can be, you know, quick little, I have a few different devotionals in different rooms in my house. So when I'm there and if I have a minute, I can just open it and look at it. It doesn't have to be this structural and, you know, manifestation. It can be creative. So I'm giving that up and just allowing, giving up the space that I think a man has to hold in my life, because I'm very capable to do all that I need to do. And that if he shows up for some reason, how beautiful that would be. It would be the icing on the cake, not the cake, because I'm the cake and I'm creating the life that I want in spite of all that. So, because my mother's real good about reminding me, did you meet anybody yet?
Here's my theory on that. He lives in New England and he's waiting for you
here. That's a separate podcast we gotta do.
And Karen's guy is in New England too.
That's why I'm coming there, guys.
Tracy's frozen for whatever reason.
Yeah, you're frozen. I'll go. Mine is, well, obviously releasing the self-doubt. Releasing control, and the universe has got it, has been a big one, and just repeating that over and over again. So I'll keep mine kind of short and sweet. Mine is control and self-doubt, and we're good with that. We can release that.
All right, perfect. Okay, ladies, Tracy's frozen, but she's upstairs, so I know she's all right. We'll just say goodbye and have a great week, and we will see you next Saturday morning. And actually, Saturday morning, the 26th, I think Karen and I will be together in Boston. And so we'll be doing the show from, I believe we'll be at the Four Seasons. We have a little work thing going on. It happens to be my birthday the day before. And actually that Saturday will be 3 years since my mother passed away. That's the day. So it's actually, I'm really happy that I'll be with Karen on that day. There's Tracy. You want to say bye?
Yep. I'll say bye over your shoulder.
Here, say bye. All right. Bye, everybody.
It just made the awfulest noise.